Today's film is a thriller action from 2025 titled Ad Vitam. The film begins with a mason named Frank. According to his job description, he's hanged by a tall building along with another person to detect cracks in the cement structure outside the building. The next morning, he takes his pregnant wife, Leo, to the hospital to monitor the fetus's health. When he brings her back home, he finds his apartment ransacked. Leo gets perplexed and asks Frank what has been happening since it's the second time their house has been ransacked by someone in their absence. Frank pretends to be oblivious about the happening and immediately visits his friend Ben to discuss the issue. When he next returns to work, someone cuts off his cable wire while he's hanging midair and flees. Frank saves himself and goes after him, but the guy slips away. He returns home to make sure Leo is okay. As he goes to sleep, we see an assassin named Vitam, who's on his job to assassinate someone. Back on Frank's side, he makes sure Leo is sleeping when he sneaks out from the window and climbs to the rooftop to secure the key he's been hiding all along. He brings it back to the bathroom, where Leo catches him. Simultaneously, Vitam invades his house with his men. Frank tries to fight them. But they tie him up along with Leo and threaten him to give them something he has. When he refuses to do so, his men render both of them unconscious and kidnap them. Scenes transition into a flashback from 10 years back, in which Frank and Leo are seen graduating from a training program from France's police unit, among many others. A senior officer approaches Frank and hands him his father's badge. On its back, it says, Ad Vitam, which means lifelong in Latin. There's a flashback within a flashback, in which we get to see how Frank got to meet Ben during the training program. While Frank and Leo are trained side by side, Ben joins the force from the Army's side. He's great at climbing and balancing himself midair. One time, the militants and the regular police unit have a boxing match, in which Ben fights one of Frank's teammates. By the end of their training program, Ben takes the shooting exam, which he passes because Frank was positioned as his target in his safety vest. This paves the way to their friendship. When he officially joins the GIGN unit, Frank pins the badge on Ben's uniform and wishes him good luck ahead. On their graduation day, they all head to party one last time. After mingling with Ben, Leo hits it off with Frank and makes out with him. Their friend Nico finds out and teases Frank. Even when they bid each other farewell and return to their rooms, Nico and his wife tease him again. When Frank goes to his room, Leo joins him again. After some time, the batch reunites at a barbecue party, where Nico gives Frank and Leo some good advice on marrying each other. 9 years after the graduation, Leo calls Frank to tell him she's pregnant. He hangs up on her before she delivers the news because he's getting another call. A hotel bellhop calls him to complain about the gunfire he heard in the hotel. Frank and his friends immediately reroute to the hotel, where they put on their vests and masks and barge in without waiting for backup. There, Frank suspects 2 men and tries to stop them, but they open fire on them. Ben gets shot while Nico gets jumped by one of the 2 suspects. Frank shoots the suspect to save Nico. He also shoots the second suspect, who's held a woman hostage. Unfortunately, Nico's neck gets punctured during the attack, and he bleeds to death. First his gun is seized, and then he's fired along with the full blame for Nico's death and Ben's injury. He packs up and meets Nico's wife before leaving, during which he breaks into tears. Later that night, Leo also comforts Nico's wife. At Nico's funeral, Frank sympathizes with Nico's kid. He watches Leo speaking to her senior officer. When they return to their room, Leo reveals she's resigned from the unit because she's serious about settling down with him. When Frank goes to check up on Ben, he takes the entire blame and apologizes to Ben. Ben doesn't let him take the blame and admits he would have done the same thing. He now confronts that he's permanently fractured by the gunshot and disqualified from their unit too. Frank returns to his room and sleeps beside Leo on the couch. They start dating and fall in love. They move in together in a small apartment. While unpacking their stuff, Frank finds his badge stained with the blood of one of the suspects. He takes it to a forensic lab to get it tested. When Frank discovers the actual identity of the suspects, he visits Ben and shares that the suspects were secret agents often hired to do dirty work for political figures. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Ben asks him not to get involved in this. Henceforth, Frank hides the results in a locker along with the badge and hides its keys on the rooftop. Sometime later, Leo and Frank attend the birthday party of Nico's younger son. There, Nico's wife shares with Frank that her elder son somewhat holds him accountable for Nico's death. Frank sits down with him alone and tries to clear the ambiguity, but Nico's son claims that he wouldn't forgive him until he reveals the identity of his father's killer. Full of regrets, Frank meets up with a reporter and gives her the information while remaining anonymous. Next, two agents are seen approaching the minister. They put things in perspective about the firing incident at the hotel, where a CIA agent, John Brennan, showed up to strike a weapons deal. The suspects who killed Nico were actually two DGSI agents who were secretly sent to inspect the deal. Brennan found out about their existence, so they shot him and his people. When they tried escaping, they came across Frank and his special force. Here, they reveal that the reporter sent to Frank was their agent in reality, which is why the information never leaked. Now, the agents appeal to the minister to help them eliminate the proof Frank has. The minister hires Vanaken for this job. The story shifts to the present, where Vanaken's men show him Leo's live footage on their phone, which confirms they have her. Frank agrees to give them the badge, due to which they drop him close to his apartment. Frank washes off his bloody face and puts on a hoodie to blend in. When he reaches near his apartment, he finds out cops are all over the place. This prompts Frank to climb a tall pipe outside the apartment building. He goes to the rooftop, from where he climbs down to his room window and barges inside. Upon searching the bathroom, he doesn't find the key but gets spotted by a police officer. He kicks the officer and runs back to the rooftop. The cops try to shoot at him, but he jumps onto the adjacent building from where he escapes.
Hey!
He approaches Ben in his children's training center and tells him everything. Ben brings him back to his place and gives him an idea to smear his actual blood on Ben's badge and turn it in since he can't find the key. After doing this, Frank calls Vanaken to confirm he has the badge. He gives Frank a location to show up to. Ben joins Frank on his bike but leaves before Vanaken's men show up. Soon, they show up in their car and ask Frank to follow them. Upon doing so, he reaches Vanaken. He demands to see Leo before handing over the badge, so they take him out in the open, where they've restrained Leo under a tree. Frank lets them have the badge from under the bike's seat, after which Vanaken messages a suicide-indicating note to all of Frank's contacts and orders his men to kill Frank along with Leo. When he leaves, his men are distracted from the execution by a noise coming from the bushes. While one of the men goes to check, the cops find Frank's location by tracking his phone signals and dispatch their men to get him. Meanwhile, the man returns from the bushes and shoots his own men. When he takes off his mask, revealing it's Ben, they now steal guns from the dead men and head towards the building, where Vanaken is confirming the minister of doing his job. When he hears the third gunshot, he figures something is off. He tries to contact his men, but Frank and Ben kill two more men in the building. Frank tries to leave in their cars, but Vanaken opens fire in his direction. Frank fires back and lets Ben start the car, in which they all flee. Vanaken and his men go after them and open fire once again. Leo shoots the men shooting at them, during which she gets shot in the arm and simultaneously goes into labor. Since the men aren't leaving them, Frank jumps out of his car to divert the men towards him. He obtains a gun and shoots at Vanaken, who does the same from his car. There, two police officers arrive on their dirt bikes, but Vanaken shoots them right away. Frank manages to get a hold of one of the dirt bikes and flees into the woods. Vanaken grabs the second bike and follows his trail. On the other hand, Ben and Leo are still being chased by two cars. Ben keeps Leo motivated and hopeful during her labor. Frank makes it out of the jungle, but the cops are already waiting for him in the open fields. Vanaken returns to the jungle, while Frank tries to run away from the cops. He ends up finding a paragliding parachute, which he uses to escape. Vanaken keeps track of Ben and Leo and takes a shortcut to find them and shoot at their car from afar. Ben dodges the shots by driving recklessly and fleeing again. He now calls Frank to tell him Leo is getting worse, so Frank tells him to take her to the hospital. Back in their unit, their head gets the news about their fiasco and sets out to find them along with his task force. Vanaken's men still chase Ben, while Vanaken finds Frank and tries to shoot his parachute. At last, they all collide near the hospital, where Vanaken and his men target Ben, but he shoots all of them. Vanaken still walks up to Ben after getting shot and beats the living hell out of him. Frank lands on Vanaken, pushes him off Ben, and beats him. Subsequently, the cops and the special force surround Frank. He surrenders and takes out his dying wife out of the car, seeing which the task force lowers its weapons and lets him take Leo to the hospital nearby. While Leo is taken for an operation, the task force arrests Frank and puts him in a cell. Soon, Leo gives birth to a healthy baby and pays Frank a visit. Now knowing the entire story, she plays her part well. It is revealed that during Vanaken's invasion, she secretly took out the keys and had access to the real badge all along. She turns it in to the police, which is also broadcasted on the news. Frank is proven innocent and is set free. As he unites with Leo and their baby in a public place, the film ends. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome recaps.